personally, I want raptors because I'm a big fan of raptors eating people. I would like to experience that. Not experience it, but I'd like to see it happen. Does this mean that fairly soon we're going to see what, like gene-edited babies? Where we're going to see people being like, oh, I want this particular genetic trait. I don't want this, like, you'll get a menu.
But that's old school, because we know that babies are under trial, edited babies who have thalassemia taken out of them. So I'm sure it's going to start with medical reasons, which is fair. We're treating these deficiencies, we're creating happy families. But I'm sure people will come in and they'll have X-Men sort of inclination.
Now, if we believe the good people at Colossal Biosciences, then this is the first time anyone has heard this sound in about 12,000 years. That's because they claim these aren't ordinary wolf cubs, these are dire wolf cubs. Now, that's a species of wolf that roam the North and South American savanna around 250,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, something like that. Now, they look pretty much like your average grey wolf, or your average wolf for that matter, except that they've got a much larger head and much larger and stronger jaws. And that's because the prey they hunted was pretty damn big. Now, anyway, you know how the story goes. The prey went extinct, and yeah, humans probably had a lot to do with that. No surprise there. And so the dire wolves howled their last lonely howl around the time that the city of Jericho was being built. But now they're back. Now, sort of, because what Colossal Biosciences has done is that they extracted the dire wolf genome from a 72,000-year-old ear bone and a 13,000-year-old tooth, and then they edited the genes of a grey wolf to resemble that genome. They took those cultured cells, cultured them into an embryo, and transplanted that embryo into the wombs of two large dogs. And voila, you've got, quasi-dire wolves. Now, why did they choose grey wolves? That's kind of interesting to me. It's because grey wolves and dire wolves share about 99.5% of their DNA, and apparently that 0.5% makes a lot of difference because, bear in mind that humans and chimpanzees share, 96 to 99% of their DNA, and you may know this, humans and bananas share about 60% DNA. So in the future, somewhere in the future, when we have almost certainly wiped ourselves out, some enterprising or insane alien species may try to bring us back using a banana and whatever little bits and pieces of us that are left. And then, the result will probably be displayed in an intergalactic zoo or something. I don't know. In the present, however, we now have three really cute looking dire wolf cubs, Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi. That's their little sister. And yes, this is that Khaleesi. And, I do have some nerd rage to vent here because the dire wolf is the sigil of House Stark, not House Targaryen, with all its, incest and dragons and white savior complexes. But we can ignore that. I'm going to ignore that just like I'm pretending that the 8th season of Game of Thrones never happened. We don't talk about it. Just like we don't talk about Godfather 3 or the Matrix sequels because they didn't happen. It's the Mandela effect. You're imagining it all. But anyway, here's a bonus picture of George R. Martin himself cradling the dire wolves, because apparently George has all the time in the world to do things like this, to do literally anything other than writing the book. Just write the book, George, because really that's the only thing any of us want from you. Okay, I'm done with that. But as far as Romulus and Remus, cool names. These are, of course, the mythical brothers whose mother was a Vestal Virgin and whose dad was Mars, the Roman god of war, who, like all Greco-Roman gods, was not just horny as hell, but a really bad baby daddy. He's like an absent, deadbeat dad. They all are. Anyway, Romulus and Remus, not the wolves, the mythical characters, they were abandoned to die and they were raised by a female wolf, and Romulus ended up founding Rome after killing his brother. That's an interesting theme which you will find repeated in myth, the abandoned baby, and of course, fratricide sort of tells you who we are. And this is the reason why we don't have a Riemann Empire. We don't learn about the Riemann Empire, we learn about the Roman Empire. Riemann's, unfortunately, in any medium always get the short end of the stick, man, because in Star Trek, the Romulans are like cool, crafty, nasty Vulcans, and the Riemanns look like, second cousins of the creature from the Black Lagoon. But be that as it may, that's enough pop culture for now. In the here and now, Colossal Biosciences has even bigger plans. They want to bring back the dodo, they want to bring back the Tasmanian tiger, and my personal favorite, the woolly mammoth. And the first step in that direction has already been taken, and it's insanely cute because in March this year, they took the woolly genes of the mammoth and injected them into mice, creating this. I mean, look at how cute they are. I mean, you can't tell me you don't want a woolly mouse scampering around your house. Now, we know there's a lot of skepticism about this. I mean, is it really a dire wolf? Do we even need to bring back extinct species when we ourselves are in the middle of a huge human-caused extinction? And what does this mean for humanity and the future of the world? Now, I can't answer these questions, so let's go and talk to someone who can. So I'm here with Dr. Faisal Khan, who is a PhD from Oxford, no less, in cells and system biology, and he's also the director of the Cutting Edge Precision Medicine Lab. Like I said, someone who actually knows what he's talking about. So Faisal, you're like super excited right now.
Very much.
Aren't you? Like really? I mean, is this as big a deal as it's being made out to be, or is this going to be like the water car?
I know there are skeptics.
There are skeptics.
But I believe yes. It's an amazing moment in our trajectory in biotechnology where they're finally able to pull off what we used to read as kids, right? When I was an undergrad, we used to hear cloning is going to happen, and cloning happened.
I've seen horror movies.
We've seen Jurassic Park, for example.
I was going to ask you, I'm going to come to that.
Yeah, and then, and lo and behold, we have it happening. We can talk about the skeptics. One interesting side is the ethical side of it, right? But we are seeing now that technology is so fast-paced that the ethics conversations are not even
far behind. They're not even taking
and they're not even able to stop anything. Yeah. So how do we deal with a technology that is just moving on, marching on?
Well, ethics is like so early 2000s now. Right?
Yes.
Nobody talks about ethics in 2025.
Especially with fast-paced technologies.
Especially with fast-paced technology.
Technology's exponential speed, ethics can't catch up, which creates a friction there on how do we really decide in society.
I'm going to rewind a little bit. We'll come to the ethics, but you're a scientist, and what I've learned, seeing the reaction coming out of this whole story, I mean, there's like 1 million videos, debunked, this isn't true, is that you guys are actually like huge haters, like the scientific community, right? I mean, you just don't like other people doing cool things. So, I mean,
doing it ahead of you.
Or doing it ahead of you, really. I mean, I get that. I hate it when that happens. So, I mean, why? I mean, is this professional jealousy, or do you think that, like, the critics actually have a point? And specifically, I'm going to talk about, like, de-extinction, right? Now, we know these guys, everybody wants to bring back the woolly mammoth. Personally, I want raptors, because I'm a big fan of raptors eating people. I would like to experience that. Not experience it, but I'd like to see it happen. People I don't like. Why de-extinction? I mean, there's an argument to be made that there's a lot of species that are going extinct that maybe you want to save, rather than bringing species like bringing the dodo back or bringing back, the Tasmanian tiger. Like, why? What's the point?
It's funny you say this. One of the answers is that you need such technologies to be able to have something at hand when you're about to lose something, so you can restore it back. And I think they just tried to clone another wolf,
the red wolf,
the red one, and then and they report that only 16 are alive out there, which means it's critically endangered. So that's the thing with these sort of milestones in science. I see them as stretch goals. So once we achieve something like that, it covers a lot of distance and resolves a lot of smaller problems on its way. So I see a lot of fruits coming out of it. I'm sure there will be a lot of concerns. But the best thing is going to be, when it marches on into humans.
You mentioned stretch goals, right? And I'm assuming what you mean by that is like aim high, and you might hit a target somewhere in the middle. Like somebody might be like, oh, we're going to send a manned flight to Jupiter. Okay, you may not be able to do that, but maybe you could get to Mars. And in the process, you end up developing technologies, you end up developing skills and techniques that then help in a lot of things. Like, I mean, look at all the technologies we got out of the space race.
Yeah.
I mean, plastics,
Yeah.
although you could argue that, maybe that was a disaster.
Yeah.
But the point is, it was still
Yeah.
a technology,
Yeah.
right? So is this biology's moon landing in one sense?
It is in a way, because we've kind of ticked off a big, huge piece there where we were saying we're able to bring some species back. With all the arguments, I mean, if you critically look at it, look at the science, you could argue this is not dire wolf because it doesn't have a dire wolf as a mother or a dire wolf as a father.
Yeah, which they're all dead. So
But that's very old school in a way, because almost 15 years ago there was a paper where they created a bacteria whose parents were a computer, because the DNA came from a computer. You define parents.
That's like terrifying.
Parents.
That's
The definition
frightening.
of a parent is which gives you the set of DNA, right? So this has already been happening, but in a mammalian sort of setup, like the wolf, we see it for the first time, and it's just going to improve from here. I mean, there's no questioning that. You can quarrel over the approach. That's what the scientists are doing at the moment. But I find that trivial, because whichever way you do it, you've already done it, right? And by the way, costs are still going down. So costs
for this entire thing.
for sequencing DNA, for synthesizing DNA, printing DNA of your choice, all these costs are going exponentially down. They've slowed down over a period, but they're expected to go down further, which means these methods develop even further, which means we can do such things in an even faster manner. So no questions about that.
Okay, now when you say do things, right, and when you talk about printing DNA, right, this sort of very primal fear comes up in my mind, What does this mean for humans? Because obviously they've tested the technology, right, and they're using CRISPR gene editing technology. Does this mean that fairly soon we're going to see like gene-edited babies, where we're going to see people being like, oh, I want this particular genetic trait, I don't want this, like, you'll get a menu.
So we saw the CRISPR papers, right?
Yeah, we did.
From China. And that just kind of, everything, all those conversations were up in the air. Then all of a sudden, on what do? Do we really exercise the moratorium we already have in the civilized world? Or do we just follow China now?
I like the quotes, because,
or do we just follow China? But that's old school, because we know that babies are under trial, edited babies who have thalassemia taken out of them. So I'm sure it's going to start with medical reasons, which is fair. We're treating these deficiencies. We're creating happy families. But I'm sure people will come in and they'll have X-Men sort of inclinations. Right?
I want the claws.
Yeah, I want the claws.
And the healing factor, I really.
So you never know. You never know.
Not so much the lasers from the eyes, because,
Yeah. I like Magneto, so.
Yeah, Magneto's cool.
So one vision is, and there is a startup pursuing that, is you have desktop printers at home. Desktop printers which can just print out a vial of DNA of your choice, which means if this had happened during COVID, everyone would have had, so the government would just have said to people, go to this database, go to this website, download the latest vaccine ka sequence.
Print your own vaccine.
Print your own vaccines, because we just had a new variant.
Yeah, big pharma is not going to like that, though.
Yeah. So it's gonna. So there's a whole sort of.
Yeah, I mean, that's like $1 trillion. They will kill you for it.
There's a whole industrial sort of. There's a whole economy around that, right? So yes, I mean, so there is hope, and there are fears. You have to be balanced. But my worry is that countries like ours, we should be prepared. I mean, we should embrace this before we have to make these choices.
Can we, though? Because here's my question, right? Now, when I hear about this, like, in my mind, I mean, there's like a cash register going ting, 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 ting. And this is like super expensive, I mean, forget about the R&D and everything. I mean, this is like running into the billions. I mean, and ultimately, right, the first people who are going to benefit from, say, gene-targeted medicine are going to be people who can afford it, right? And the countries that can afford it, right? So, I mean, it's one thing to say that, I mean, we politely say developing world, but let's be real. We're talking about poor people, poor countries, poor people. How can you even get into that? I mean, isn't that like a bit of a stretch to think that like the developing world can get into this?
So we saw DeepSeek, right?
Yes.
We saw DeepSeek, which did the whole ChatGPT thing at a fraction of the cost.
That's China.
But that's hope.
Okay.
That's hope that outside these centralized sort of hubs of economies around these technologies, things can happen. And I genuinely believe there might be more brighter ideas outside the Bostons and the Londons of the world. But we need to tap those, number one. Number two, every technology starts off expensive and then it gets cheaper and it's democratized, it spreads. Biology, for your information, is getting cheaper 13 times faster than IT.
Really?
So the semiconductor industry, which underlies all your IT infrastructure, all our iPhones and stuff, it's going 13 times faster than that. So which is a big ray of hope there, that it's going to get cheaper, way cheaper than IT, go cheap faster than IT, and then countries like ours could manage to jump on the curve earlier before it gets too late. That's two. Three, I don't even think we have a choice. I mean, what are we waiting for? We claim that we are a country of young people. We have a lot of people going to universities. I think it's our job as leaders of our professions to kind of give them the right training, the right expertise, the right direction to be able to manage all of these things. I think it's inevitable. Otherwise, I'm sorry, but there's no hope then. These disparities will grow. So I don't think it's a question of whether or not. I think it's a question of how soon should we be mobilizing. And I think the time is now, because like we saw with AI, I mean, you don't jump on a technology curve when the grandma can talk about some technology, right?
Yeah.
You have to jump early, well ahead of everyone else.
Yeah. And now though it's blink and you miss it, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's the speed of things.
So we kind of, we've missed the AI. We're not producers of AI. We can be fancy consumers of AI.
Kind of are.
All our lives.
It's made people really annoying though.
Yeah.
I mean, LinkedIn is nauseating.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's like just ChatGPTing their bios, and it's gross.
Student essays are worse.
Student essays, I sympathize.
So yeah, I mean, it's getting into a terrible sort of situation there with that.
There's also a critical need, right? I mean, look here in Pakistan, if you look at overall in South Asia, I mean, you've got one of the highest rates of diabetes in the world, like 27% of the adult population. That's insane. That's like 1 in 4 people.
Yeah.
We've got thalassemia, we've got all kinds of things. But we haven't even mapped our genomes yet, right? So
we're the 5th largest country of the world. We don't have a consensus Pakistani genome, or for any ethnicity for that matter. I think we need to break this. We need to sequence a good chunk of our healthy individuals within our population, a good, diverse sample from within our all regions of our country. And then we need some disease-specific genomes, like you said, thalassemia. I mean, which mutations are causing thalassemia in our population? We don't even know. We might have small studies from here and there looking at smaller sample sizes, but there's no comprehensive, there's nothing which can influence standard of care, which can improve what we're providing out there to all these children. And it's so easy, like they show up for blood transfusions, etc. You can crawl the network and find their families and just go targeted. So all of these things are possible if we pull our data sets together and we work on those. And this can't happen if we do not sequence Pakistani genomes. That's been my pitch throughout to all policymakers, by the way.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks a lot. Just one last question. How soon do you think before I can clone myself? Because when I was a kid, I always used to say, I wish I had a clone because I really don't feel like going to school today. Or, if I want like a little body double that I can harvest for organs going forward, if my lungs fail or something, you think that that's a possibility in my lifetime or no?
So clone you or clone a body part? I mean,
whatever.
So
Body part is fine.
you can create a patch of skin from your own stem cells right now, right? That's a service which is provided everywhere. We haven't reached more advanced organs like heart or your kidney, but skin, you can get it anywhere, get it done for yourself. Whether someone can clone you, you can do it right now. Whether you're allowed to, no. So we need to resolve the political questions which are on top of the ethical questions and all the LC questions, we call them, ethical, legal, social implications of all these technologies. So it's just mankind just trying to resolve whether we want this or not. And that's another thing, like we don't have genuine conversations which doesn't yield anything here. Case in hand is GM foods, for example. So that's a hot sort of potato, right? Out in the West.
Yeah, people have strong opinions.
Yes, very strong opinions. We did a survey in Pakistan and in Indonesia. I surveyed some biology teachers, a good few hundreds of them. 80% were in support of GM if it was not doing any harm. So they were okay if their food is GM. They were okay if we do human GM as long as it helps the human. So just saying, I mean, ethical values differ in different geographies. Ethics even changes over time.
That's true.
But has anyone studied our ethics, or have we even had any, educated sort of discourse around this? I'm afraid not. So you never know. Maybe you ask. Maybe it's just a matter of a survey here in countries of the East, and lo and behold, people are up for some cloning. It can happen overnight. That's how close we are technically to it.
See, I don't know whether to feel like excited about that or
Yeah.
just like completely bloody terrified. Because again, one thing I think that we can say with a fair amount of certainty about humans is that we've never let ethics get in the way of, good old-fashioned genocide. Thank you, Faisal, for all of that.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we may have dire wolves in my lifetime, I think you guys are definitely going to have raptors, possibly with little machine guns on the top. I mean, I would like to see an army like that. I'd watch that movie. I'd buy that video game. So yeah, thanks again. And that's all for now. See you guys later. So you listen to all of that, I hope, and this is why a lot of people are saying that this is the ChatGPT moment for biology, in the sense that what ChatGPT did in terms of a quantum leap in artificial intelligence, this is a similar quantum leap in synthetic biology or biology as a whole. And there's room for optimism, but I think there's a hell of a lot more room for pessimism, because if history is any guide, yes, eventually these kind of discoveries do end up causing some degree of benefit to man. But given the nature of humanity, there's an equal, if not greater, chance that this is going to be used to some fairly devastating effect. We can hope for the best, but always remember that hope is generally the first step on the road to disappointment.